continuing. He's also, sorry?
I'm just recording this. Carry on.
Okay. So yes, Erdogan is also pretty old. I mean, some of these guys, some of these dictators are, getting on in life, and they just won't be around for very much longer. So I think the next generation of governance and government personnel and leadership is likely to be much more open-minded. And I think the authoritarian, illiberal regimes will be a thing of the past, gradually over the next 5, 10 years. So yeah, I'm probably just a bit more optimistic than the average person. But that's why. But this is this risk right now is very high in Turkey. It's well priced into the market, and because of that, the market has sold off. And I'm seeing, the average upside to consensus target prices that I see on Bloomberg in Turkey well over 40%, and that's a high. Last year it was around 20. But the market has sold off and is really pricing in this domestic political risk. On the geopolitical side, I think Turkey's actually an interesting play because it can be a peacekeeper between Ukraine and Russia. It has been, or Erdogan himself has become more of a diplomat for the region. His idea of a sphere of influence is very interesting and it's evolving. He, for example, brokered the Black Sea grain deal and facilitated the export of Ukrainian grains and Russian grains through the Bosphorus with checkpoints and so on to ensure that ships coming in weren't delivering weapons. But he's done a few things that have been sort of mediating parties. And obviously, Istanbul played an important location for recent negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. And they might do that again. And Qatar is sort of in the same, mindset, trying to be the Switzerland of the Middle East. And I think Erdogan would like to be remembered at least as a sort of a diplomat and maybe recreating an essence of the Ottoman Empire through diplomacy. I think that might be one of his thoughts about how his legacy is perceived. In any event, Turkey's in a good position to be providing peacekeepers. Yes, they're a member of NATO, but they're not European. They have the largest standing army in Europe in NATO after the U.S. They have tremendous military industrial complex to back it up, and I think they would be good peacekeepers on the ground between Ukraine and Russia if there is a ceasefire. I don't anticipate a peace agreement anytime soon, but a ceasefire could happen. Putin has a lot of momentum on the battlefield right now, and this is part of the reason why we haven't seen any willingness from Putin's side to accept a ceasefire in the short term. And Trump is getting a little bit upset, at least publicly, he's being a little upset because his offers of a ceasefire to Putin have been rejected. And yeah, so ceasefire is unlikely probably until November, when it starts getting a little bit difficult to fight on the battlefield. And the momentum, the forward momentum and territorial gains may have stopped. On the other side, of course, Trump has starved Ukraine of any new weapons. The Europeans have very little to give, and the outlook is getting more and more dim for Ukraine. So if we don't see sanctions soon, I mean, the EU has stepped up their sanctions, but the US has not. The bone-crushing sanctions, to quote Lindsey Graham, have not been signed into law. There's 80 senators that are ready to sign this, but but Trump has asked them to hold back and give diplomacy a chance. At some point, the Senate and Congress or House of Representatives will probably pass this bone-crushing sanctions, which would be incredibly difficult to implement, but they're talking about secondary country sanctions. Any countries dealing with Russia would be themselves sanctioned, or any companies dealing with Russia would be themselves sanctioned, and that means Indian and Chinese offtake of oil and energy products out of Russia those companies would be facing sanctions and would not be able to do anything with the U.S. and their banks as well would be part of that. So there would be a lot of pressure on Putin if those sanctions were implemented. And I think Trump is just delaying as much as possible the authority or approval of Senate to pass this law. They already have it's already super majority, so they could. There's no veto right for Trump. He's just sort of politely asked for them to delay it, but it's a matter of time. So that would contribute to a ceasefire. And certainly part of the negotiation is if you don't act in good faith and start to negotiate a ceasefire, Mr. Putin, this law will be passed. So that's sort of a stick that Trump is hanging over Putin's head. And he's trying to incentivize Putin to do it. But, I don't know. The relationship between Trump and Putin has been called into question many times. And there's some very interesting stories out there. Hey, I'm talking all the time. Daniel Radchenko, you're very experienced in the region. Actually, Carolina had an interesting question before about venture capital in the region. And Daniel, you're closer to venture, you're doing private equity mostly. And maybe you could actually answer Carolina's question about the format of venture capital in the region.
Hi. So, well, our current stance is that we are just exiting. So we've been in Russia and Ukraine and Armenia and Belarus for like 20 plus years, and the international private equity in Russia and the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, has been like there were like two more or less international private equity firms, Sigler Gaff and Berenquist back in 1990s, and there are still, until the 2022 events, there were two big international private equity firms in Russia, Sigler Gaff and Berenquist. So it never flew, so to speak, because of all the differences in the approaches to how true private equity firms operate there. There have been a bunch of so-called private equity in Russia, and most of them were like, so to speak, pocket firms for local oligarchs. They presented themselves as a private equity operating from Cyprus, for example, which never an actual private equity firms. And today is like Russia is dead, definitely for us. We're still trying to exit some legacy investments there, and the amount of hoops you have to jump is like just outrageous. I mean, and you get like 5% of the actual valuation. So Russia is dead for the time being. Ukraine is not yet there. I mean, you mentioned that there are people who are buying Ukrainian bonds, for example, and then selling them once the news turned the other direction, right? In private equity, it's a more long-term story, and I don't think it's... Well, Dragon Capital is there, and Horizon is there. Horizon, probably the only one local or international firm which managed to raise substantial amount, I think 300 million 350 for Ukraine. And I think it's still difficult to deploy. We had, for example, a land plot near Bucha in Kiev, and we wanted to construct warehouses there. We never did because of the crisis after crisis and war after war. And the Horizon, no, it was Dragon, and Dragon did construct a big warehousing complex there, only it to have been bombed by Russia in 2023. So I don't think that everyone is sitting on the sidelines. There is lots of dry powder from the guys like EBRD, IFC, and like there are billions and billions of dollars sitting and waiting for.
How about other countries? I mean, Poland, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan is really picking up right now. There's so much happening. I mean, the GDP growth in Uzbekistan is like 6.5%. Georgia did 9.6% last year. There's got to be, private equity going on, and venture capital happening in these countries. But I hear very little. I guess, I mean, going back to Russia, it hurts when you jail your biggest, the team of Barings Vostok got jailed, and their assets were taken, and so that kind of shuts down the business. That's in Russia, and obviously the war ends it as well. But the surrounding region is just it's some of it's doing very well. I mean, Eastern Europe is growing 3 times the rate of Western Europe. Central Asia is growing double that. There's a lot happening. We just need to get out there and find it. On the venture capital side, I'm talking. I'm not an expert in venture capital or private equity, but with that much sort of broad economic growth, that stuff has to be happening. I'm focused on liquid markets.
If I may, on both markets question then, yeah, but because when we're saying growth, like I have a constant argument about, fair enough, it's not going to be in equities, but constant argument over growth and exits and the scale of exits, right? So what worries me when we're talking about, okay, there's growth in the region, right? To what end, right? Because the growth will be divided as we had today in the call. We had different regions and all regions are growing, right? So my question, and we can't grow to infinity. There will be, everyone's going to get a market share, right? So I think it's my question is, okay, there's a growth in the area we all can see, and there is a potential. But once, let's say, after the shakeup of the war, well, where will the dice land, right? In comparison, as we were saying, and I think Mark said, in comparison again to US, we can assume US will decrease or increase in comparison to China that may, decrease and increase. How do you see it exactly?
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is
Yeah.
convergence. Convergence is a theme that many investors use when looking at emerging markets. How will these emerging markets converge with developed markets? The lifestyle, the quality of life, the cost of living, the macro factors do converge over the long term. The demographic factors converge over the long term. And so when you're looking at GDP per capita in some of these markets, like Romania at 19,000 or Turkey at 14,000 GDP per capita, where does that growth end? To answer your question, when GDP per capita is close to EU levels, probably, EU levels, Western EU levels are probably 60, 65,000, 75,000 per capita. That's kind of when it ends. How long does it take to get there? You can just do a linear extrapolation at the current growth rate of, say 3%. It's going to take 25 years to get there. So there's that long-term sort of pull for these countries to converge over time with all of these factors. And while their quality of life is below that of others, these people have a motivation to live, they have an aspirational desire to live that quality of life. And that's a driving factor. Michael, did you have a question? No? Okay. I'd be happy to answer any questions or talk about my fund if anybody's interested, or we can talk more about a macro story of investing in Eurasia. It's open format. Anyone there? Well, if no one's there, I guess we can wrap it up. Okay, guys, it's been great. Have a good day.
Just wanted to say, guys, if you wanted to come back to the main room, or you can go to another breakout if you want. Can you hear me? Chris, Alexei, Peter?
Yeah, Mark, how do I switch to another room?
1 second. Breakouts.
Latam, if possible.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
I can. Where do you want to
Uh, Latin America.
go? Come back to the main room, and I'll do it from there. Same
Okay.
thing, Chris.
Okay.
Invite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the recording started a little bit late, but yeah, and I'm based in Barcelona, and I'll be based in Abu Dhabi, partially Abu Dhabi, Barcelona from November. So pleasure to meet you all, and please connect with me. I've dropped my LinkedIn profile as well in the chat. Thank you, everyone.
So hopefully we can meet you in November in Abu Dhabi.
Yes, of course, I'll be there.
Sure.
Well, we'll be in Abu Dhabi in December and October.
Yes. I should be there, but December I should be back Christmas in Spain, but definitely I'll be there.
December 7 to 9.
Okay.
I'm actually seeing Eurasia, Alexei in the city tomorrow, but Alexei Zoran said we have to go to Aula, and
Of course.
so we're going to do a retreat there. I brought in some people from the India room because they were talking about having offices in Dubai and working with the Middle East. So I thought we would merge forces.
Thanks. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I was listening when you guys talk about India, and I have office in India. I have office in Hyderabad, and we are doing so many things with, especially investment. There is so many, like there is a company I work with called Gulf Islamic Investment, and they're doing so much investment in India. We have a lot of funds here in the region. They're doing so many foreign investment in India because the return in India is not like anywhere else. This is why I think the Gulf region recognized that early on, and we have a strong relation in that.
And actually, Africa too. You know, I
And
talked to one of the infrastructure funds. They're African, and they invest in like energy, renewables,
actually,
healthcare, education. Like they have identified 7 areas. They don't go as the primary. They take between 20 to 35, and they like tolls, roads, bridges, infrastructure, ports. Like Wi-Fi, all these kind of connections.
totally.
Yeah, they are very interested in this.
Totally. The Saudi government is doing, the Crown Prince brother, Prince Abdulaziz, he has initiative to do so many projects, renewable energy in Africa. And he will focus on, as you said, the big project. And it's like the Chinese model. You look at the big project, infrastructure project in Africa, and you will create everything around ecosystem around this project to make so much, like it will be beneficial for both parties, for them as a country and for the PIF and the Public Investment Fund or Aramco in the other side.
Yes, definitely.
So I had a question. Timothy, go ahead.
Yeah, Arita, I was going to ask you a question. One of the things that I've seen to your earlier comments was a lot of talk, I should say a lot of talk, but some talk around the investments of sovereign wealth funds in what you talked about earlier, sort of becoming the sort of the global head or the global nexus of AI data centers, and that a lot of sovereign wealth funds in the Gulf region, I think primarily Saudi Arabia, but also I think some of the other sovereign wealth funds in the the GCC, were looking at combining the resources to really position the region as a global hub for AI data centers, much in the same way as Dubai over time has positioned itself as a global transportation hub, sort of seeing itself in that really strategic position between Europe and Southeast Asia and India. From a geographic perspective, the GCC likewise seeing itself in a capitalizing on the geographic location and being able to connect globally very easily to the Americas, as well as to Western Europe, as well as to Asia and Southeast Asia and India, with the sort of data center focus. But I'd be interested in your thoughts on how much or how little impact you think those sovereign wealth fund investments are going to have, and how real the discussion is, and whether that is going to lead or whether that is going to follow private sector investment in that area.
Yeah, I think that it was very serious from the government they're investing, and I saw cases directly with the government as a consultancy. Literally, they are looking at a good companies and the big companies, and they're hiring their own people to do that as well. They are doing the initiatives, like they are starting things and they are spending money and they're already doing things. They already have a small companies created internally and they're doing the work. They already brought Google people, AI people, all of the vice presidents or ex-Google, AI's things, and they're already doing the work and the workplace, like already launched, but they are doing it, I will say, low profile companies, especially they, as a governments, they don't want to be the news everywhere about these things because they're testing the water and they're trying to find things. But the private sectors need to move now, because if you're a pioneers, you can win the market, and it's not a huge market. It's a huge market, but also the big players will be one or two. It's like OpenAI. You think about it, you need just 2 to 4 companies to lead all of the AI strategy in the next few years, I think. And you have to have a deep pocket because it's not an easy project as well, or very unique technologies, then you can compete. But yes, even the private sectors, they're looking at all of the family offices I met the last 2 months. They're talking about the opportunities in AI and data storage, but they want the unique. And me and Marx were talking about this a few weeks ago.
Actually,
about
yesterday.
And yesterday, but also if you remember, like two weeks ago, we talked about as well.
Yeah.
The AI companies coming from the US, management from the US, deep tech also from India, and how we can mix this to create a high value for each one. And this is where the uniqueness can come.
Partly, I think Saudi should be investing into some of those companies and then enabling them to grow. Partly, it's a win-win, particularly if there's some synergies. Like we met 100%. A company in Seattle that has the ability to provide unique technology to lower the energy costs. Like 5 different dimensions to lower the energy costs. We all have to be working on this.
Mark, I just to answer your question about this, I saw yesterday one government website, and they have a fund or grant, I will say, but the grant is huge. It's 40%. It's $20 million grant. Okay, between 10 to 30, something like this, depends on the project and the initiatives. Mm-hmm. But what it was fascinating for me, if you are international company, you get 40% of your budget of the project.
That's what Carl needs. Carl, if you could get a 40% subsidy for your tire recycling plant, I think
40%.
40.
And if you are local company or based in Saudi, they will give you 100%.
It's like I went to University of Michigan and I was from Ohio. I think they were
even
discriminating
if
against me.
you're foreign but you're local, you are
Yeah.
localizing the technology, you
Yeah, yeah.
will get 100%. But if you are based in the US and you want to keep it in the US,
It's
you
still
still get
something.
40%.
Yeah. Well, I brought in Africa. It looks like it looks like Latin America might be joining. All
Cool.
our roads, you're the new Rome. Go blue. Tammy. Nice. Yes. That's partly how I did develop my network, Tammy, and is leaning on in Dubai and Abu Dhabi with all the Michigan people. And that there are 500 Michigan alumni in Saudi.
Amazing. Let's
not-
you know what we need to do, Mark? We need to identify these programs in Saudis and like just having the
Oh,
the tools.
let's get the Ministry of Investment on here. Like they came to our event, right?
Oh yeah. Mhm.
In the
For
right
sure, I will talk to them
forum.
next week. Then also, this is one of the parts we're gonna visit. We're gonna visit them. I will connect with them just
Yeah,
to connect.
who wants to go with me to Saudi in July in the middle of the heat?
I don't see anyone just like we can keep it until October, December.
Yeah, much better.
So you can enjoy it as much as you can. So you will lose it in 2 months. Don't worry.
Yeah, yeah. So
I have to go, but
yeah,
it
we
was
all
great.
I have to go into the city where it's really hot, by the way.
It's so hot here too, in Zurich. Unbelievable. 35 degrees Celsius, no air conditioning.
Wow.
By the way, if anybody's in New York, we're hosting a lunch on Thursday, Mark Mitchell, if you're around.
I'm jealous.
I'll be there tonight at the
Thank you.
Explorers Club.
There's an event tomorrow, all-day conference. So I've got it. Damon, I'm forgetting his name, from Shark Tank is there.
Damon John.
Damon John, yeah.
Lunch Thursday sounds good. I'll send you an email.
ARS 529 Fifth. It's interesting. We were wanting to talk to you, Arij, that it's for it's that 11 o'clock call for investors, and at 12:30 we bring in deals, companies. But the ironic thing is it's for the sober community, but you don't have that problem in Saudi.
Yeah, we try.
Or if you do, it's in the closet.
We try.
So
I know the founder actually. I had met him much earlier. Very, very cool guy.
Who?
The Lucid founder.
Oh, MJ. Yeah, he was with us in San Francisco, and actually Abdul Gang, I don't know if you know this, Arij, he changed his plans. He's flying back to Chicago to meet with somebody he met on the West Coast too.
That's cool. Yeah, he did. We talked briefly. We didn't get he said next week we will match notes and just see what we can do together. But we just talked briefly, and he told me he's going to Chicago.
So there's another family office that came instead of Arij, but I love his holding company name called Organized Chaos.
Beautiful.
You'll always remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was great.
So I work close together with an American fund with also a name that you cannot forget. It's called Blue Like an Orange. Did you ever see a blue orange?
Well, that makes brown, blue and orange, right?
Blue like an orange.
Blue like an orange.
It's like red, like a white. Okay.
But it's a nice impact fund. Their first fund was a $200 million fund, fully invested in South America.
Okay.
The second is a $300 million fund, where the first 20% are dedicated to Africa. Now they are building the fourth fund of 400 million, which will be global. At the beginning, they wanted to dedicate it to Africa alone, together with Africa 50, but the interests were different.
Well, they sound like the perfect people to have it in this your emerging markets. We should do this every month.
Mm-hmm.
Bring them next time.
Wonderful.
You're in charge, Gunther. That's how we do things.
My time is absolutely limited. I don't have stuff. I'm working from my home office as a freelancer. Okay, with some partners in different countries.
Cool. Well, I've got to hit into a train, but I appreciate everyone joining. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Reed. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. This was fun.
Guys.
See you.
Nice
Bye.
meeting you all.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Gunther.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.